selfishly, this episode is about me because, as we're going to talk about, Ken is someone that has built a lot and built himself and gotten to a place of at least what I would call success. And so, as someone who's in the thick of it, as I think a lot of other quarter lifers are, of just chasing success, chasing something, whatever it might be for them, I figured it'd be a great conversation to talk about. So, Ken, tell me about like what's going on in your life. Tell me about the success, the mountaintop that you've gotten to, kind of what life looks like for you these days and why I think it's great.
Today, I am quickly approaching 38 years old. We are, we'll call it recently, just finding out who I am, who I'm comfortable with, right? The true version of myself. To answer your question, what I think success is today is being able to come home and feel like you're home. Working so hard and being able to have something to show for it. And that's not to be confused with financial. That comes with knowledge. You end up finding a place where you're comfortable financially, but what I'm referring to is you have a family who you confide in, you have trust, you have conversations, not only with your family, your spouse, your children, yourself. You need to understand yourself before you're allowed to understand what's going on around you. I am a proud business owner. We're coming up on our 6th year, and I never even thought this was possible. And one day I went with a gut shot and had nothing else to lose. And I knew that if I was to put all my effort into this gut shot, that there was a good chance that it would last.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 years later, here we are. Now, to operate a functioning business, I had to, we're going to call it, work on parenting. I am a proud father. I am a proud husband. My wife and I get along. We are best friends. My daughter is the perfect example of a daddy's girl, and I couldn't ask for more. Those two things alone are enough to drive me daily. There are many times that just life, not even talking business, family, you feel defeated. And what I've learned is you can't let that take over your soul thought process. To me, I've learned that feeling defeated means that you're about to learn something new. And I truly believe that every day is a blessing. And I'm extremely happy to be where I am today.
No, I love that answer too because I mean it's so much of the version of success that we talk about a lot these days is like yeah like the money, the external, the material stuff that I mean of what I can see like we're in your beautiful house right now. You've gotten there, but and that's nice, but it's not everything, right? Um, and with the family, with I I do think also what you're saying is the conversations you have with yourself and just being comfortable having those conversations, being honest with who you are and where you're at and what you want, where you're going, where you've been to, like that is a huge piece of that like internal success that I don't think we talk about enough. And so with that being said, I do want to talk about how you've gotten here and specifically kind of what life was like for you maybe 10 years ago in your 20s. Because I of what I know, you have a great story. And you've gotten to this successful point in your life, but it wasn't always like that. And So what was life in your 20s like? Kind of loaded question.
Growing up, I was your definition of a knucklehead. Um, I thought I had all the right answers. I'd give great advice, yet I would obtain none of it. Um, I never thought I would go down a bad path. I thought I was invincible. I hung out with the wrong crowd. I did things I absolutely should not have. Um, and to be honest, I held a very strong grudge with myself for many years. I think not only is it because it was the wrong thing, I think the grudge came from I still didn't know who I was, who I wanted to be. Here I am growing up with people that uh, initially we were all the same and they were finding their way in life. And I still didn't even know how I was going to make it tomorrow. And like, I think I put a lot of pressure on myself. Um, and again, that's kind of a selfish comment because everybody around me felt the same pressure. Like, they were like, when's Ken going to get his act together? So, growing up, you hang out with people who are achieving goals and you see them succeeding, excelling. Some are failing, but they're learning from it. I did the exact opposite. I set goals that were so unrealistic. It sounded great. Now, if I was able to achieve these goals, everything would be great. But unfortunately, I would set unobtainable goals. End result, I was more harsh on myself, which then continued to prolong me. I didn't want to be around people. I was ashamed. I thought that I was a failure. Then you start learning that people you thought were friends, which you still are, but you kind of just go separate ways, right? Life changes. Um, so now you're trying things differently. You're hoping to find answers that you thought you knew before, but if I had just opened my ears and listened to that person, not even talking to me, talking out loud, maybe I could have gathered something from it. I didn't know how to do that. Um, as the years went on, you know, again, just talking financially, I had good jobs. I didn't know how to keep them, right? I thought that I had all the right answers. I thought you were the problem, they were the problem, never me. When if I just really replayed the exact scenario that just got me fired or just got me written up, I would have learned very quickly like maybe you need to start doing things differently. Just listen. Um, so now we're getting into the later 20s. I just kept telling myself something has to change. At that point, I still didn't know what it was. I can't even say I definitely know what it is now, but just one day I woke up and I was like, what if I try setting small goals? Something that's obtainable. I'll never forget, I wanted to save $500 and do something nice for my son.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to do that. $500 to somebody may not be a lot. Somebody who's making minimum wage to be able to pay their bills, save this money, and follow through with a plan. I still remember that feeling like it was yesterday, the sense of accomplishment, knowing that I don't need to excel as fast as you do. On my own time is fine, as long as where I go is up. Um, it, the goals stayed small because at that point I was like, maybe I'm onto something. And slowly but surely, I started to, we're going to say, accumulate common sense. I was willing to listen. I was willing to give feedback, take feedback. By far one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. The second I stopped thinking that I had all the answers is when things were just, we'll call it gifted. like this knowledge that I knew nothing about, that I thought I had answers to, I was completely wrong. And now I'm starting to understand.
So to me, just hearing that, it sounds like one, the people that you surrounded yourself with were, especially growing up, were critical, and just detaching from like those expectations that other people either set for you, or just by being around them you kind of set on yourself. uh and also you kind of, you talk about just, I think, just the humility aspect of just being honest with yourself, and just realizing that you could be wrong, right? Like, you don't know everything. I think that's a huge piece to, man, just everything. I saw something recently that was like, an idiot is someone who thinks that changing their mind about something is a bad thing. You know what I mean? um, and so, and like you talk about, right, like the more external stuff of getting fired from jobs, stuff like that, like jumping from job to job, setting these unattainable goals. And so for you, that trigger moment of like, how do I get through this, was setting just one attainable goal that you then actually hit, and you kind of got a little bit of a taste of that, and it was like, oh, maybe I should do this more often. And so what then? So we're at kind of late 20s at this point ish, maybe 30. Anything like kind of in the middle of this quarter life, like I think the quarter life goes to like, I don't know, 34. What then, as you're kind of starting to turn the corner, anything else that you're kind of just dealing with, working through?
At that point, we are making progress. It doesn't mean that we are comfortable. Um, there's been many times I tried to convince myself that we're comfortable where we're at. So I think something that's very important to touch on is years go by. Let's say 5 years. Year one, you are dreaming about where you want to be 5 years later. 5 years later, it, beyond doubt, you are there. Everything you hope to do, you wished you could accomplish, you now have. At the end of that 5 years, you start being stagnant. One of the biggest things for me was not to forget where I came from. The second I put my guard down is honestly when a bad behavior came back. And I don't want you to take that the wrong way. Something as easy as waking up and not having your same routine. To me, you need that type of regulation. You need something to be constant, so that way you feel you are moving forward. If I stop doing something, it's either because I'm not comfortable doing it, which is when you shouldn't stop doing it because nobody likes change, or ultimately it may be the wrong way. You've tried it, you've exerted options, you've tried every way possible. Maybe that's not the best way for you. That was very hard for me. With what I just said, again, here I am feeling like I failed because you set this goal, now you're talking about it, right? You almost want to talk it into existence. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, somebody asked about it, and now you're like, yeah, that just didn't work. Well, but why didn't it work? Like, most people would say, that just didn't work. I'm going to try something different. If you don't talk yourself through it, again, talking to yourself, it all starts here. Like, I have to understand what went wrong. If I beat myself up over that, I'm not going to learn how to move forward. I have to find some type of clarity in the bad.
It's kind of like talking about failure and like dealing with the hard stuff too. It's just, it reminds me of a video I showed when I was working with college athletes. Is a Kobe Bryant video. It's all about like him talking about how failure doesn't exist, and it's all about. He's like dead serious. The video is hilarious, but it's if I fail on Monday, well then I have to figure out why and then come back and try again on Tuesday. And you just do that enough times. I do think to your point, there is some like it's push or pivot. Like I've been there like business wise. It's like do I keep pushing and doing that process of fail, figure it out, like try something again? Or is this actually a dead end? Do I have to pivot to something else? And so now that you're at the I'm just going to refer to it as your success mountaintop where you like you explained earlier where you're at today. I think it's a place that a lot of people are after, right? Like people my age, somebody like me looks at you and it is like you have the business success. I want that as well. You have the family success. You have the internal success, all these things. I'm not trying to like put you on a pedestal, but like a lot of those things, like you're there. And why we're having this conversation, I think, is because a lot of people my age that are still in the thick of the figuring out who I am, what I'm after, what my goals are, like we're all after something. And I think you've gotten there. And so, not that you're like done, you still have goals and all that stuff, but what has that been like? Like, tell me, like, let's start with like the great stuff about getting to that mountaintop, which is a somewhat recent thing. Is that true?
Somewhat recent meaning.
Meaning, I mean, your business has really taken a jump within the past 6 months, right? At least talking from that standpoint.
Correct.
Year, like 6 months, year. Um, and so, and like obviously, like the family stuff and all that, the internal stuff was prior to that, like that form of success. But what what has that been like? What has reaching like to go back to 10 years ago? If 10 years ago you saw you and your life now, what would Ken of 28 say?
Ken of 28 would have said, "No way in hell."
Yeah.
How old are you again?
27.
27.
Yeah.
So here we are at age 38. I'm coming up. I think we're just approaching our sixth year in business, which would mean at age 32 is when I finally got my butt in gear and I wanted to try things differently. Again, never thought this was possible. Prior to me starting my company, this is not an exaggeration, making $16 to $18 an hour. At the end of my work week, feeling zero accomplishment. Still in debt, unappreciated. I didn't appreciate what I had per se because I felt like it was all just you get paid, it is gone. This is where finding yourself came into play. Your friends call you, "Hey Ken, let's go out, let's do something." Never would I say, "I'm broke and I can't." I would say, "Unfortunately, I have prior commitment." It sounds better. So, it really allowed me to find myself. Um, you know, not even a year ago, I reconnected with an old friend, and the friend looked at me and said, "Wow, Ken, must be nice." And I have never taken such a comment as a slap in the face in my life. How many events did I miss? How many things? And it's not to say that I didn't want to do those, but the reason for that comment right there is for every person to hear this. Hard work pays off. I still to this day don't stop. I don't know how my wife puts up with me. I am always working. I'm always doing something, but I think as a positive from that, I have at least found some type of balance. I now have family time. I now make time as much as I can for my own self. Um, and when I do things for myself, like seeing my wife smile, seeing my kids smile, like that means the world to me. There's not really anything else that I need to do or that my day doesn't feel complete. Like I'm content where I'm at.
Mhm. Yeah, well, just that comment from that friend that you hadn't seen like reminds me of uh, everyone's jealous of what you have. No one's jealous of how you got it. And I feel that too because I think you get to a certain point where you're not okay sacrificing the big thing that you're after in terms of like for you it might have been like business, family, those two things very very important and big buckets of your goals and what you want in your life. And when other things don't contribute to that bucket and you're strapped on time and life's busy and all this stuff, it's like I feel that like there's plenty of things that yeah I would love to say, yeah I would love to go to the game, I would love to go golfing all the time, I would love to do this and go grab beers and all that stuff, but at a certain point you do have to, I think, depending especially like business owner to business owner, like it's a different world when you're working for yourself because you do have to make those sacrifices, but it's not because you didn't want to, it's because you kind of need to in order to nurture the things that matter most. And so is there any part of success and like reaching the mountaintop with where you're at that has felt on the flip side like empty at all? And I say that because I personally have like a little bit of a fear of success because right like we talk about goals, and to me it's like when quarter life clarity eventually like pops off and gets to a point where I don't even know necessarily what those markers necessarily are, but to me I see success at some point it's going to be me getting down on my knees like Rory McIlroy when he won the Masters, and just that moment of like holy shit, like we did it. And that's awesome. But then, just like Rory winning the Masters, Monday happens and Tuesday happens. And 5 months from that date happens. And to me, I see that as, one, it's obviously so great, but it doesn't end there, and some of that pressure is definitely lifted, I would imagine. But to me, there's probably a little bit of like, okay, now what? Like, did you experience any of that with any of the success that you've now achieved?
If I said no, it would be the biggest bullshit story ever. I deal with it daily. Um, I think the easiest way to say it is if I don't sell work, I don't have it. Right? So being consistent in my potential customers, I am beyond grateful for my customer base. Um, you know, one of my opening lines is every project starts with a phone call. Um, Feeling comfortable customer to contractor is where we start gaining some ground. Um, I'm always worried. What if the phone calls stop? What if I'm not landing the rate I am right now? As we continue to expand, okay, more guys need to be working. more jobs need to come in. That means more maintenance. That means more overhead. One of the truest statements, more money, more problems. It's not that uh, people think, oh, wow, look at the guys, look at all of these size jobs you're doing. They think that you're overnight rich. You're not. I'm finding balance. I'm finding ways to not have to worry about next month, 6 months from now, 12 months from now. That's the only thing that I could ask for. Where I'm at, we're comfortable. I don't need more than what I have right now. I need mentally to be consistent. Um, owning your own business takes a very big toll mentally. Many don't stay with it because of that. I was almost one of them. You think you have 6 months lined up, magically you only have 2 weeks more booked and nothing else. Okay, well then something happens to the house. Something happens to your vehicle. All that money you had saved is now gone. What do you do? I think the biggest thing for me, I stopped panicking. If I'm acting insane because I can't find the next solution, granted, I'm a people pleaser, I'm a go-getter, I'm a doer. It doesn't mean to let myself fall apart because the answer isn't right in front of me. That's where you being able to even manifest, right? You have to believe it. If you think something bad's going to happen, the odds of you getting out of that funk are not really going to change. You believing in yourself and the next step or next piece to the puzzle, that's going to make you get somewhere. I think right now my biggest thing is believing if I made it this far, it can only get better. For me at least, I've almost found some type of comfortability with running the company now 6 years later. We're finding some type of consistent agenda where we know what the next day's schedule is going to be. We know what the next 30 days schedule is going to be, which gives me more leniency. Mm-hmm. So, I think the biggest struggle I face now is I'm kind of getting stagnant as far as what I want my next step to be. I'm comfortable now, but just like you said, it doesn't stop. Yeah. You have to want to better yourself. I don't care what position you're in life, good, bad, ugly, you have to want it. I know in a short 6 years, going through it was a long 6 years. Mm-hmm. In a short 6 years, what I was able to accomplish, and solely one thing, dedication, and the two people that I needed to believe in me, believing. That's all that I needed, right? Now, I say two people because my other close friend base, family base, not that they didn't believe. Okay, how many times can I say that I'm going to do something, and whether it's not follow through or not succeed or something like that, they kind of lose hope, which at the end of the day made me lose hope. And that's why getting back to small goals, this wasn't overnight. This is a lot of hours, a lot of dedication. But one thing I will say to the person who could withstand all these hours, at some points in your life, it's going to be for ultimately nothing but knowledge. The sense of accomplishment that I feel, that's success in itself. I have no idea what tomorrow's going to bring. I really don't. But I do know this much. It's going to be a lot easier to get back on that horse once you know that you've done it for a long period. Yeah. you feel uh, appreciated by yourself. Like I really feel good.
Quick interruption. If you're enjoying this episode and you found it valuable, my one ask is that you share it with a friend. I think the only way that this thing really grows and quarter life clarity makes the impact that I believe it can and will have is if people like you take a second to send it to someone who you think might also find it valuable. And I know when we send people podcasts, we think we're sending them work. I've been there. It feels like that 100%. And I always like to say, if I'm sending them a long podcast, hey, man, I know you might not have 90 minutes to kill, but I found this valuable. And if you listen to it, great. If not, that's okay. Have a great day. That's all it needs to be. And if you haven't found it valuable, then that's okay. Like, don't send it to a friend. Thank you for being here and enjoy the rest of the episode. You've given yourself proof that you are who you say you are, like that quote. Uh, and so now I think it's anytime you go through something hard, something challenging that really tests you when you're in the fire, and then coming out on the other side, it's like you kind of feel like Superman in a way. Like I can withstand pressure, I can withstand all the difficulty and get through it. And so, I think that's just a lesson. It's talking about hard things. Like human nature is to avoid hard things, right? We don't want to do it. But to me, like the goal in life is really to become your greatest self, right? It's cliche, but I think it's true. Like who you become in the process. And so if that's true, well then an easy life doesn't get you there because of human nature of to do the bare minimum and get by. That was how I lived my whole life up until I don't know, like 23, whatever, when I had my crisis. It was like you got to actually like work hard to get things and become a better self. And it was like I just always got by because I was good enough and I could figure it out. I could smart my way through it. Um, but yeah, I mean, we were talking about before in the past 6 months or like 2 months, you've had basement flood, you've had dishwasher go out, central AC go. What was the other one?
Good old termites.
Termites and a mice problem that was discovered in the basement with the flooding.
In the midst of all of it, yes.
And so I bring that up because, to your point, like you can withstand that blow because of where you're at, like kind of what you've built. And just you said before, like just being able to say that, being able to withstand something that shit maybe 2 years ago would have destroyed you, or a few years ago, like really like financially and mentally like broke you in a way. Like you're at the point where you can say, okay, this fucking sucks, but we're going to get through this.
Something that would be good to hear is we talk about it, we just laughed about it, right? During the time, this is all spaced out over 2.5 weeks. So in 2.5 weeks, all that happened. At first, my mental state was in shambles. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, okay, we're going to take care of it, but essentially, this is not good. Like, these are all things that just don't happen overnight. There's a lot of man hours. There's a lot of things that nobody thinks about when these issues happen. And the only thing that got me through it was knowing that, like, it's going to be okay. Like, I felt a sense of accomplishment that all these things are happening and we can kind of talk it through and fix them. It may not be overnight, but to know that I'm at a place in my life where we could talk about these things and find solutions, whether they're long-term or short-term until we could find long-term, that was huge for me. To the person who thinks that life is just going to be one easy cakewalk, you're going to be sadly mistaken. And unfortunately, that was me until reality hit. Not saying that this, what just happened to my house, but life in general. In my 20s, I thought I was invincible. I thought I was going to wake up one day and have it all. Yeah, that's not happening. It's not happening. So,
Yeah, and it's funny. I saw something recently that I think you'll like. It's I saw it on Instagram. It said, "Yeah, it's gonna take years. Yeah, it's gonna be really hard. But what the fuck were you planning on doing instead?" And that spoke to me because just going back to like success and people my age or after, the money, the relationship, the life, the whatever, insert your thing that you're chasing here. And it's like, well, I would like to think I'm going to get those things eventually. But right, then what? Right? Like what to me, like I love hard work. I love dedicating myself to something bigger than myself. And to me, that kind of just centered me on, you know, I don't always want to be looking ahead to the okay, when this happens, then I'll be good. Then I'll be happy. Then the pressure will be gone. It's like seriously, like what are you going to do instead? Like what do you think that like does life just end there? No.
it does not.
Yeah, and it also reminds me of another one. You've already achieved goals you said would make you happy. I feel that one big time. Like when I was a few years ago really like what am I doing with my life? Career wise especially, like what am I doing? I had no clue, blank sheet of paper. And for like 2 years, it was just man, when I figure out what that thing is, I'm going to be freaking great, man. Like once I just have the thing cuz then I'll know I just I have something to focus on. I'm so kind of scattered. I need to just hone in and just go hard at this thing. And I obviously got there, and that feeling of at least like business number one with called up coaching, that was the first thing that was like, this is it, man. And you have that like euphoria almost of, wow, we've gotten it now. Like, let's go hard at it. And it lasted, I don't know, a few weeks maybe. But now, especially as the months, the years go by, it's like, well, that is so old news. Like I am so much after, okay, freaking make this thing work, man. Success, like make the business actually like a success. And so I think it's just to turn it back to you, like how do we get off that hamster wheel of always chasing the next rung on the ladder? And even like, do you think that is like wrong? Because I think it is important to have goals. It is important to have things you strive towards.
I think to kind of better elaborate on that, right? So the hamster wheel, you're constantly you're in rotation with yourself. So you're not only are you achieving, obtaining, you get to that point where just like you said, these are things I thought about, never thought were possible, but you're like, if I get here, wow, would I be set? Like, I'd be happy. I'd be content. I need nothing else. I thought it. I believed it for years. Then you finally get older, more wiser. You're networking with different people. I'm a firm believer the people you surround yourself with are kind of things that you are destined for. And that's why today I pick my friend circle very close. Am I friends with people? Yes. Are we people who hang out weekly, monthly? No. Even my extreme close friend circle, we can go weeks, months without seeing one another. Life takes over. But the end result is when I do see them, it's like we never skipped a beat. We know what the end goal is. I want it. People say this, and it's kind of cliche, but I necessarily don't even care about myself. Again, I'm a people pleaser. I'm a doer. I like being the person that gets called when people need something. I feel accomplished. I saw something to go to Instagram or Facebook. This quote hit me hard like you wouldn't believe. And it's very small and short worded, but if you think about it, it makes the most sense. It said the only person that's going to remember you weren't around because you had to work late hours or do this or do that are your kids. The day that I heard that, now I was more stressed because I'm like, something's got to change. I'm like, I have to do something different. Um, and the reason that I'm getting to the hamster wheel this way is when I reached the goal that I thought was never obtainable, and now I'm here. It's like, well, what do I do next? Sometimes you just being consistent with that goal is enough to show you that you're ready for the next step. I don't know. Now that I've reached a goal that I thought was never possible, this sounds kind of messed up, but I don't know if I'll ever be happy, right? I'm always thinking of ways and means to do more. Um, and not just for me and my family. Like, the company, we give back to the community like you wouldn't believe. Just that right there. Being part of events that nobody's willing to be part of. They're wrapped up in their own lives, right? To ask somebody to be part of a charity event or something like that, that's a big ask, right? I get you want to be part of it, but do you have the time? Can you commit? Do you know how to communicate? If you can't do something, are you just going to be a no call, no show, or can you communicate to properly give those responsibilities to somebody else? I love where I'm at right now. I'm content in
Mm-hmm.
a nutshell. I'm already planning what my next move is because I've shown myself. I think you showing yourself is really going to open doors you never thought possible for you. It opens up conversations when you're sitting at a table with somebody and you're like, how did I even get in this position? How am I lucky enough to be sitting next to this person? You know, I had a business meeting a few weeks ago. I was so overwhelmed and nervous because I was like, he's calling me. I'm like, what is going on? Like, he really wants to sit down. Like, we went out for dinner and drinks and we had a very productive conversation. And since then, we have had follow up phone calls, which means that we're getting somewhere. Um, Again, not to say today's generation, but reality, people want this much by doing this much.
Yeah.
That's where the long, hard hours, right? There's no days off. My day off is mentally preparing me for my next week.
Yeah.
I love seeing people succeed. I think once you start to understand that too, the person rooting for you wants nothing from it. He wants to see you smile. Like, I didn't understand that until the people in my circle now, they want nothing from me just to have a genuine conversation. How are you today? What could we do to help? If my car breaks down 3 a.m., I'm not calling AAA. I'm calling my friends because I know, like this, they are there. And likewise, they also know it. If they call me, I don't care what time of day it is, what I'm doing, I promise you I'm dropping what I'm doing in moderation if I can.
Yeah.
And I am there. Um, and like that's also success to me. That's accomplishment to me. I I always had close friends, and I think that for certain scenarios, they would stop what they were doing to come help. But genuine is what changed. Not for something in return, just because you wanted the help.
Yeah, I think one thing that I did want to touch on is like to go back to what I said earlier about after you achieve success, whatever that is to you, the relationship, career, money, whatever you're after, there's another day, week, month, year that happens. And so I've thought about that personally recently. of, okay, when I get to that, when I achieve that goal that I'm after, and I have that moment like Rory at the Masters, it's like, right, what happens the next day? Like, I think everyone should sit in that. When I get the relationship that I'm after, what's life going to be like a month, a year, 5 years after that? Life goes on, right? The story continues. And I've thought about that. And what my conclusion to kind of combat that is, well, it's good to have goals. It's good to have those milestones and appreciate them and celebrate them. But knowing that, I want to love and get lost in the doing. Like that, because, right, the behavior, like, there's still going to be work. You're still going to have to work on that relationship. You're still going to have to work for you, like, in the business. Once you get to that, once you've gotten to that point, things still have to happen. In a lot of ways, they get notched up, right? Like you've experienced. And so to me, I think I've realized that, and it's like, hopefully the goal to me is to get lost in the doing and to love what I'm doing and to it's the cliche of the destination is the journey, right? That's it. Yeah. And I've sat with that because I don't want to have that day that it does happen and then it's like, well, what next? Like, now I'm empty. Now I don't know where to go from here. And so for you, like, with that, like, what's something that you wish, like, someone my age, like younger people, quarter lifer, understood better about success?
I think that's a question in itself that we could talk for hours. But what I think is probably one of the most important things, because you'll learn from it along the way, is it's okay to try new things. It's okay to venture out of your comfort zone, because for me at least, change is one of the most feared things. And then when I try something and it worked or I enjoy it, there's always a backup plan. You know, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I sound like my brother when I say
Yeah,
that.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know,
Um,
and then when you know, it's half the time it's too late.
yeah.
Brian McManus quote.
Yeah. So I think for anybody just starting to realize, like, you have to have a game plan. I don't think you should limit yourself. I think you could find a path and take it, but it's not to say you won't veer off track. It doesn't mean you can't find the way back to the road. It's leaving you open for options. Um, you know, the saying, don't put all your eggs into one basket. I used to. And then when something doesn't happen my way, or it fails, or it takes longer than anticipated, what do you do? I leave myself with options now. They may be unforeseen options, but sometimes you have to take it as a blessing. Um, something as simple as hearing a song. Something from that song sticks out to you. Or you're in the store and you see something and you have this epiphany about trying something new, and okay, well, it's okay to try. Like, it's okay to fail.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the best things I've learned is you never fail if you learn from your mistake. I still struggle with it, but it doesn't end there, right? There's situations where I have to replay the same scenario 10, 20, 30 times. If my response to the scenario isn't the same, it's progress. And it's because I'm trying to find what hopefully is a better way. I think for the younger crowd, what's extremely difficult is, and this is still me too, right? Like FOMO, fear of missing out, is a real thing. I still struggle with it. I like to do everything. The reality is, you can't. Um, Now, maybe rejection's not the right word, but like, you don't want somebody to think you don't want to do something with them, or you don't want to not take a road because you fear of what the next person's going to think. I definitely care uh, of how you portray me. I care of the way people look at my business. I care the way my kids look at me. I care what my wife thinks of me. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be myself. Every road's different. Everybody has their own journey. You have to be ready to ride the roller coaster. Um, for years, I wouldn't try something new. And one thing I don't do, like if I'm going out to my favorite restaurant, 10 times out of 10, I'm getting the same food. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying things in different areas of life. Like I'm not limiting myself to one thing. When you do that, what happens if tomorrow isn't there? What happens if your game plan is not your game plan anymore due to unforeseen circumstances? What do we then do? You getting into a mental state where you're hard on yourself and you don't know how to process what's happening is what's going to delay you. You have to have some type of backup plan. Um, Whether like for some people, like just going to the gym, right? Going to the gym could reset your mental. Well, it may not be the answer, but it gives you enough time to process. You're getting back on track so that you could properly diagnose what's happening. Um, I think people who, excuse my language, soak in their own shit, you have to find a different route.
Yeah.
I'm a prime example. I literally, if something bad happened to me or in my life or to somebody I know, that was my excuse for months. Well, shame on me, right? You need to learn how to pull yourself out of that situation. Many of the younger crowd can't say what I'm about to, but I have a family to support. I have a business to support. The goal is to be wherever you think your life should be and be able to manage it. So, wherever you think you're going to be, if it's not manageable, if it's not obtainable, you need to switch it up. Eventually, it's not to say it's not obtainable. For right now, you may need the different path, but don't limit yourself. Don't be afraid of what the next person thinks. The only person who has to live with it is you.
Yeah.
With that being said, think things through.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah.
Impulse was probably one of my worst things. I still struggle with it. If I think of something, I'm definitely let's do it now. I still struggle with that. But I think as far as things that would change my life, it's a 50-50 shot, good or bad. I need a few weeks to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I may feel differently in 2 weeks. And it did sound good. There very well may be a very high potential per risk. But is it something you're willing to play with fire for? Um, One thing's for sure, like, and I keep going back to family. Let's just say my business fails tomorrow. I'm going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be the easiest thing. Now that I've shown myself, sky's the limit. Accomplishment is huge. A lot of people don't feel accomplished because they have their priorities or what they think success is differently. Now, don't get like money makes things easier. at the same time, what do you do once you get there? Like, just like you were saying, okay, well, what if the things that made me happy one day don't make me happy? Where do I find clarity? Where do I turn that negative energy around? You have to have some type of backup plan. I think having you time is also huge. That's when I process most. Like, enjoy freshwater fishing. When I fish, granted, I'm loving life, but especially if I catch something, I'm loving life. Um, the what do we call it here? The environment by itself, any lake, any river, any pond, there could be hundreds of people there. I feel like I'm there alone, and that's a good thing, right? I need to feel like I'm okay by myself, because if you're not okay with yourself, how do you help others? How do you move on in life? You have to focus on what's the underlying issue. Um, Again, for the younger crowd, don't limit yourself. It's okay to start something and 6 months down the road, a year down the road, think maybe I should try something different. It's not to say you can't fall back on what you thought was a good idea to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving yourself options.
A lot of people are afraid to try. They're afraid to try because of that failure of, well, if it doesn't work, then how does that look to everybody else? And I mean, something that's helped me get over that is like no one's thinking about you anyways. Everybody's thinking about themselves. And also, by the way, when you're 90 and like on your deathbed, the only person that has to live with that regret of, oh man, I wish I did that, or I wish I went harder at this, or did what, just any regret. The only person that has to live with that is you, is me, right? And so that has personally helped me overcome some of that fear of failure, that fear of what other people think. Um, and something I also wanted to touch on, just with success. I came across this video recently of Will Smith talking about a corresponding place to rock bottom. He called it cliff top, and it was all about how, right, people in rock bottom. I've been there. You've been there. You get to that point and it's like, I have to do something different. I have to change. And what he said, also being Will Smith, having achieved great success, he said the same is true when you reach cliff top, when you get to the end of money, the end of fame, the end of sex, the end of drugs, whatever it might be that you're after, those goals, you get to the end of it and you realize those things cannot satisfy me. And he then goes on to say, like, what you're really after with those things is yourself, which I thought was like a weird thing to say at first, but he explained it as like, it's how you feel on the inside. It's what those things, that feeling you get on the inside from those things. And to me, like, when I heard that and when I think about that, it also reminds me of this idea. And like, I've talked about my faith on here plenty, but to me, and like coming from the faith background, there's like, I believe each of us has a hole in our heart that can only be satisfied by having a relationship with God. And I think a lot of us, even sometimes, like myself included, try to fill that hole with, insert your version of success here, that thing you're after. And I think especially you look at people that have achieved like great success, like a Will Smith, and they get to that point and it's like, this is it. Tom Brady won 3 Super Bowls at 27. He was quoted on 60 Minutes of saying, Like there's got to be more than this. Like I'm 27 and I've done it. I've achieved it. Like now what? It's like that empty feeling that you get when you've reached the pinnacle. And I just want to say that because one, like from a faith perspective, I've found that personally to be very true in my life. Um, and it does help you get off that hamster wheel and stop chasing just those more like materialistic, but not even that, just like those things. And I think what we're really after is is God. Like that's what my faith would say, and that's what I believe. All that to say, no, I know that, and it's still challenging to actually then do it and be content in that. But I think that's just something that I think what I would say is like a a solution to like that always chasing the next thing. God still wants us to have ambition and fulfill his like the call that he's put on our lives and the purposes that he's given us to go after all those things. So it is like kind of a balance, but I think it's just for me I've found contentment in knowing that what I'm really after is God.
I was always fearful of God. I grew up, um, you know, religion school and stuff like that, and I was always taught like if you do bad, like God's gonna punish. So like I was always kind of fearful of it. Um, as I got older, I found that I only talked to God in time of need. Um, and most of the time he would help, whether it's a way I liked or not. I was like, thanks God, but I think the journey of life, I think, comes from many different angles, and I think God had his angle too, right? Um, touching on the whole Will Smith thing, once you get to the top of that mountain, what happens when the number 1 through 10 don't make you feel whole anymore? For me, it was number 1 through 10 for a short period of time, extended period of time. Those things made me feel comfortable in my own skin. Now they don't. Whether it's because they're frowned upon, you're just moving past it, they're not relevant or irrelevant anymore. These are all things that you have to figure out. Um, you know, I thank God for where I am today. I know that it would be selfish of me to say I did this all on my own, because that's a goddamn lie. I've had so many people in my corner. I think the number one settling factor, when my boss prior to this would not give me a raise, I looked at my wife, not my wife yet at the time, by the way. I said, do you think it's stupid if I try to open up my own business? I only have X amount saved. Like, this could really make a struggle. I have to take that money and invest it and buy things for the company and just get my name out there. And she looked at me, dead serious face, didn't even hesitate, and said, do it. She goes, you got this, do it. I was like, woof. Like, not only will it not be a success if I don't do this, but now I'm kind of letting her down too. Um, you know, I take God as putting people in your life that never would have crossed your path. The people that have guided me back to the people I want to surround myself with. Things I never thought possible are happening. And it's not just once in a blue moon. Like, this is consistently. The things that make you start to believe. Once you believe, sky's the limit. Yeah. That mountaintop no longer exists. Mm-hmm. Sky's the limit. Mm-hmm. Again, every person is going to have their own journey. I know the feeling, so I feel terrible for the person that gives up. rock bottom is different for everybody. You could hear some stories and you're like, that's your rock bottom.
Mm.
You're like, that's your rock bottom. Like you're literally, you think you have it that bad. And then you have to really sit back and think like everybody processes differently. To talk about God, I am a firm believer that God gives his strongest battles to his strongest soldiers. Um, you know, I've been through hell and back, not once, not twice. I can't even tell you how many times. It has made me who I am today. I view life differently. I don't take things for granted. I'm giving. I try to be as compassionate as I can. I could be an asshole, sorry, camera, for I can.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing out of that entire statement is I know and I'm trying to change it, right? As long as you continue to try, you're not failing. Everybody has different timeline. Um, I think hope is probably one of the best tools you could obtain. Without hope, right? Didn't we just say I hope I could be here someday?
Yeah.
Granted, where I spoke about years ago, where I'll be comfortable then. I've surpassed it. I still have bad days. It's okay. Learn from your mistakes. Don't hide behind the door because you're afraid of what someone else will think. How do you not know that the one person you're worried about what they think isn't going to do the exact opposite to 100 different people?
Mm.
Your story could help so many.
Mm-hmm.
You know, still to this day, I struggle talking about my past. And it's because I'm still ashamed. But what I forget too many times often is that I don't think I'd be where I am if it wasn't for my past.
Yeah.
You know, so easier said than done. Try and find clarity. Um, Try to open your eyes to different things. I used to think that, like, bringing new people into my life, it takes a lot, right? Because now, if you're not consistent, if you don't show compassion, if you're not texting or making a phone call or, sticking to plans, well, how do you expect these people to stick by you?
Yeah.
Vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
I've said this more times in my life than I can count. We make time for things we want to make time for. This is why relationships fail. This is why people move on and take different paths. I think I have one more just powerful thing to
Yeah.
say, and to the person who judges a book by its cover, I feel bad for you. If you're not willing to read the whole book, you don't have an opinion. If you choose to have an opinion, you're selfish. Everybody struggles. I struggle daily. The difference is I talk about it today because I don't care what you think. I I'm talking about it because I'm looking for some positive feedback or negative.
Mm.
Help me make sense of this.
Yeah.
Um, don't limit yourself. Again, sky's the limit. And I'm grateful to be here. And I hope that this message could just get to, even if it's one person,
Yeah.
don't beat yourself up over a downfall. Learn from it. Get back up strong and show them why you are where you are today.
Yeah. And I think just one thing, um, I think just a big emphasis I've tried to put on this whole thing is like not being ashamed of your past. Like in the book I'm reading, there's a chapter about shame, and I just read it like the other day, and it's shame only exists in the shadows. Like
Yeah.
when you don't talk about it, that's where shame really digs it in even deeper. Like you have to bring it to the light. You have to talk about it. And I found that in telling my own story, like episode 1 is all about my own shit and my own story and like the screw ups that I've made. And it does do something to you when you can at least honestly talk about it and be okay with it, because to your point, like it 100% has made you who you are today. Like all the hard times, all the screw ups, all the mistakes you've made, I've made, we've all made, you're not who you are today without them, right? Because you learned from them and you got better and you fell down and you figured out, man, I shouldn't have done that. And now how are we going to move forward? To like almost tie a bow on, I think everything you've said, it's like moving forward in spite of those shortcomings. Like we all have them. We're all not perfect even still, but it's just not getting stuck in the rock bottom, in the difficult, like finding a way to propel yourself forward however you can. For you, right, to go back to the beginning, short-term goals, like set a short-term goal that you know you can achieve, like it's not that bad, and then just keep doing that. But yeah, man, I think like the whole piece of success is something that I've personally felt a lot of people I know are after. And I think just talking about it, right, to bring that some of that to the light, it's like how can we actually have a healthy view of success? And so I think hopefully what we talked about today, people walk away with some stuff to look at things a little healthier than they did before.